Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans, it's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator. Yay! Geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guests introduce themselves, and I'm going to do it in quasi-alphabetic order. I have to pick a dictionary, and in this case, we use the alphabet of Word document. So it goes by first name. I do know other letters come first. Stabby, I don't want to get any more mail from you. I'm looking at you. All right, Mr. Dave Shady Shadowin, can you introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers at home?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Shady, David Shadowin. I'm an sci-fi and fantasy author currently working for Chris Kennedy Publishing.
Outstanding. And we're going to pretend like I came anywhere close to pronouncing your last name right. And we're going to move on. I imagine your training cadre, wherever you went in the military, had fun with that last name.
Yeah. So when I first joined the military, I was skadoosh for a little while.
I buy that. All right.
I was an instructor. I would have gone with skadoosh.
I mean, Handley, I got a lot of handsy comments. When I was at AIT for the second time, I got a little bold and I asked them if they were proposing, because if so, I wanted a promotion with it. That did not go over well. Like, pro tip, do not do that.
I was garbage for like the last, I don't know, like the first 4 years of my career. Because my last name is Garber.
Well, I was so I'm a USAFA grad. I went to basic cadet training. And the reason they came out with skadoosh was that happened to be the year that Kung Fu Panda, the first movie, came out. And I went and saw it right before I went to BCT. My cadre at some point went and saw that movie, and they started quoting it while we were standing in formation, just waiting around. And of course, as a basic, you're not supposed to laugh or make any other noise whatsoever. But I snickered because they had gotten to a point where they forgot what the quote was. And they were, well, they hadn't forgotten. They had just like dramatically paused. And I snickered because I knew the line. And they're like, all right, Shadoin, what's the next line? Skadoosh, sir. And then it stuck from there.
Yeah, that's the kind of nickname that sticks forever. I'm sure some of your classmates still remember you of that.
Oh, yeah.
I got a buddy who we still call Snaplink, and it's been 30 years. Because his last name was Sergeant, and nobody wanted to yell out Sergeant because then all the NCOs would be coming out. So it's like, your name is now Snaplink. So and it stuck. He changed like 4 different units throughout his career. I guess it was on his 201 or whatever. He was just always known as, even when he became an NCO, he was Staff Sergeant Snaplink.
My favorite was he had a guy, his last name was Major. So when he made Sergeant, every time we needed to make stuff done, we would have him call the other units. Like, hey, this is Sergeant Major, but he just go right into what he needed. And they didn't, like, they heard Sergeant Major and they just started like taking notes. And we got a lot of stuff from other units that got transferred to our unit totally off books because they thought they were listening to some Sergeant Major until they caught us.
Oh, jeez.
And they made us give it all back. It was just no fun. And he was banned from the radio.
At least you guys aren't named Richard Head. My mom went to school.
I knew
with
one.
A gentleman named Richard Head.
I had one in my college, so yeah, I feel you. The unfortunate things that I had to deal with growing up are just, well, unfortunate. All right, Isaac, let's move on to something less tragic than that man's name, and we're going to talk about who you are. So can you introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers? You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
We can. You were mourning that poor guy's name. I get it. I was too.
Yes. I'm Isaac Kraft. I'm an author. I write science fiction and fantasy and with horror elements, and I'm currently writing a young adult novel.
Okay. Because you can't commit to one genre. You're just all over the place. You're genre fluid, they call it.
Yeah.
I stole that one from your classmate there, Dave Shady. We heard that from Casey.
Yeah, she's real good about that.
All right, and last but certainly not least, we have Mr. J.T. Ariel. I butchered it. You can tell us how to say it right.
Hey, I'm JT Arrail, and I'm also an author. I write in science fiction, fantasy, and horror, short stories and novels.
Nice. You will always have a way to Stabby's heart if you like the horror stuff, because she likes all things that go stab and scream and horror, and she
That
could
was
probably
actually
play all the rules for horror too.
one of my first published short stories was horror.
Nice. I mean, I've seen horror because I've eaten in a DFAC, but that's about the extent of it.
Especially in the 80s.
That's not horror. That's straight up the macabre.
Yeah, my favorite when I was in training was the somebody wrote on the outhouse wall, "Flush twice, it's a long way to mess hall." So, all right. Now that we got that out of the way, we have two new guests, so they have to answer the religion question. So we're going to start first with you, Mr. Shady, Slim Shady. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
So I will lean heavily towards Firefly. I do enjoy myself some good Star Wars, and I really enjoyed the new Star Trek movies. But Firefly is where it's at.
Okay.
Correct answer.
And what about you, JT? Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
Definitely Firefly, and then Star Trek and Star Wars when I want something mindless.
Okay. There's nothing wrong with mindless popcorn fiction.
Hurtful.
All right.
Dedicate my living room to the wars.
And because we're polytheistic, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia? Shady.
Game of Thrones, for sure. I love the intrigue and the backstab by far and away.
You also like stories that will never get an ending. I feel you.
You know, I have hope. I will be disappointed, but I have hope.
You have
a lot
hope.
like being an officer in the military.
Yeah. The story never ends. They can always call you back.
Yep.
I seem to remember in the early war in Iraq, they had a doc that was called back. It was in his 70s.
That I'm not surprised by.
He's not.
They don't really have an age limit.
I was just surprised. I'm like, dude, like he could be our grandfather, and he's over here, in the sock with us. It was surreal. All right, and now you, Mr. JT, are you a fan of Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia?
So Narnia was my first. So obviously that one. Then I'd say Wheel of Time. Game of Thrones I didn't really get into yet, so I'm kind of waiting
for the ending. I feel you.
Yeah.
All right. And our final religion question. This is the test, and Stabby, there is a right answer. She will tell you this in a second. But coffee or tea, and how do you take it? Shady.
Coffee, and as dark and as black as they legally allow.
So you want it to be strong enough to hold your spoon up, right?
Exactly. I want it to be strong enough to hold my helicopter up.
That's a lot of coffee.
As fuel, or at least oil.
So on a scale of 0 to like Navy coffee, where does the Air Force rate?
Having had both Navy and Army coffee while I was working with them previously.
Wouldn't that be cappuccino?
I'm going to say it's a 6. Yeah. I rated it as Starbucks.
Yeah. I went to an Air Force chow hall once. They gave me a caramel macchiato when I asked for coffee.
Nice. We used to, when we were, one of my mobilizations, we were going through our desert warfare training at Fort Dix in the winter in New Jersey. And there's make it make sense, as Stabby likes to say. But there's an Air Force base that butts up against Fort Dix. And I can't remember the name of it. But we used to do all kinds of operations to sneak out of the Army base and onto the Air Force base to use their chow hall, because they treat you guys a lot better than they treated us.
Oh, they do. And in fact, I just saw a meme today. It's like the Army sleeps under the stars, the Navy navigates by the stars, and the Air Force picks their hotels out by the stars.
Sounds about right.
That's right.
But it was a running joke between the MPs and I think security forces is what the Air Force MPs are called.
Yep,
and they used to have competition who could catch the most mobilizing troops trying to sneak over, and they had a scoreboard by the gate on how many each of the cops had caught to see, because it wasn't like you got in trouble, but they didn't want to encourage you to go to the Air Force side, because now you're unaccountable and off post when they're trying to get you out the door to go to war, right? So yeah. I made it at least a dozen times to the Air Force base.
When I was going through Ranger School, I had an Air Force guy with me in my platoon. I'm like, first of all, we were confused why he'd want to do this. And we were in the field, and he's like, can't believe I volunteered for this dumb 0 out of 5-star hotel that they put me in. And I'm like, hey, you're the one who did it. You're supposed to be the smart branch too, dumbass.
As a former sergeant, I have to say the Air Force NCOs did it right, because out of all the branches, the Air Force is the only one that almost exclusively sends the officers to do the fighting.
Yeah, that's fair. In fact, but the thing about that is that while we might send them to do the fighting, they're also more often than not thousands of feet up.
Fair, but I mean, if I was going to take jobs for personal comfort, I mean, can't go wrong with the Air Force. I have some cousins that joined the Air Force, and my unit was actually relieved by an Air Force ad hoc unit when I was leaving Iraq. So those boys got treated horribly. Like they were forming up when they got there in the company area, and they're like, all right, who has a date of rank of X? And they were literally forming their chain of command like in the field. They've never met each other until they showed up in Iraq. And like none of them knew how to do any of the combat stuff. We were like teaching them, okay, this is how you headspace and time a 50 cal. If you get it wrong, you will die, so pay attention. I mean, it was
They didn't have any JTACs with them or some SF dudes? Security forces?
The Air Force decided they wanted to put some ground troops out there so they could get more of the combat budget. So they just started sending
that's not their job.
RPGs. The Navy was doing it too for convoy ops. They were
it's in their theme song, "Into the Wild Blue Yonder." What are you doing on the ground? You're in the wrong
Someone forgot
spot.
to tell their detailing people because
your travel agent screwed you, bro.
Either that or they ran out of gas.
Yeah, that too.
Also possible. They were good dudes, though. They kept a positive spirit about all the times we made fun of them for everything they didn't know. So, although I will say your supply sergeants are kind of hardcore. Like for us, like in the Army, if you put the round in the barrel, that round is considered dead. Like you do not reload it, right? So if you have to unchamber, you toss it. And they wanted us to account for every single round because it's a risk of jamming if it starts adding burrs and stuff to it. Yeah. But so the Air Force wanted them all back, and so they were like, "We can't accept this. You got to give us an exact count." So I'm like, "I got you, Sarge." We went back out to the clearing barrel, and we test fired every weapon of every round, so we didn't have to turn anything in.
Spendex.
That sounds like stuff we would do.
It's called malicious compliance for all you kids at home.
Yep.
When I was an XO, I prefer that manner than turning in dunnage. It's like
it's a pain in the butt. All right, and we didn't forget you over there, JT. I hear you laughing at us, but it's okay. We're used to it. So coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Coffee and black as motor oil.
That's a good answer. Do you drink a lot of motor oil for comparison, or you just go by the texture?
Mostly texture, but sometimes taste.
Okay, you do what you got to do.
A little bourbon, and you can't tell.
Stabby and I are not afraid to admit we go basic white girl around October, and we do the pumpkin spice latte.
Oh my God!
It tastes good. I don't want to hear any judgment.
There's a little bit of judgment. I just do it silently. I put it in my journal.
I do peppermint mocha year round.
Yeah.
Like year round. Peppermint mocha.
The boy child likes the peppermint mocha too.
I don't care how much you foo-foo coffee, throw a little bourbon in it and mains it right up.
I would take notes. Although, don't do that and drive, people. All right.
You.
Not from us. We are not giving you those ideas. We are a law-abiding.
That's why I'm a passenger princess. I can drink my coffee.
All right. So we are here. If you can read the title of the episode, and I'm going to assume if you're listening, you can read. But we are here to talk about our love of Halo. That's why feet first into Halo franchise. So we'll just sort of open it up with, how did you guys find the franchise? Was it through the books, the movies, the games? Like, what was your first introduction to this universe? You don't all speak at once.
I jumped in through the games way back when Halo 1 came out. And in fact, my younger brother got the game first. And I was watching him play, and I'm like, all right, that looks chill. I'll try it out. And so we jumped on. And then, of course, that was back in the day of LAN parties. And that's how I hung out with all my friends back then, was doing LAN parties at Halo. And then Halo 2 came out. And the story, the actual story in the game while it's relatively kind of simple, the gameplay combined with the awesome moments, combined with the story, like the overarching story over at least the first 3 games, and then they continued it. And, you know, yeah, it's real epic. It's one of those like hero tales that you get to live and play, and you're like, there are very few other games that match that.
Yeah, and the theme song is what hooks you in too. The oh
yeah,
you know, and then it starts getting hard. Da 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 da. And you're like, man, I want to kill aliens.
Absolutely. I remember those college LAN parties as well, and then you'd come out on a break, whatever, and you'd scream at whoever just snipes you and whoever the camper was. And of course, normally it was me camping to get the people. And then while they were out there cheering, I'd quickly move to a different camp location and then go join them. So the minute we went for round 2, like I was already taking headshots. I was that asshole. I'll admit it.
And then of course you got to accuse people of screen cheating while you're all LAN together too. So it's
what's screen cheating?
Looking at their screen.
If you're playing split screen, you're looking at where they're at. We're looking at the screen, dude.
We were all in our own individual rooms, so we were like by ourselves. There was no one. We were just connected through the dorm.
We played sitting back to back, all in the same room.
My roommate in Iraq pulled his M4 on me because I was doing that. We're in a combat theater. We are operationally deployed, and he just slaps a mag in, racks one. He's like, "Quit looking at my fucking screen." I'm like, "Joke's on you. I'm into that shit." Pulled out my 9mm. We had a Mexican standoff over fucking Halo.
Okay, so your combat experience was a lot different than mine because I spent most of it sleeping on a cot on every fob we jumped from because we just went from place to place, and most of the time it was like
I had the F6 personally come down and start installing wires so we could all landline and hook our Xboxes up together.
I mean, like my tent was in theory at Camp Arif John Kuwait while I was fob jumping around Iraq. So your war was different than mine, Nick.
just a pinch.
For some of it.
As the staff sergeant going up to an 03 going, "Hey, sir, I really need about 1,500 yards of Ethernet cable run throughout the barracks." And he's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "For reasons, sir. Communications." And I looked into the MWR reasons, really, so people can communicate with their families back home via laptop.
So we needed a contingency and an emergency system for communications, and this is the fastest way we can communicate with each other.
So one of the things
you need red cable? I'm like, no, we're not running SIPR access or anything.
If you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit. That is the unofficial motto of the NCO.
Oh yeah, it's in the small script, the small text when you get your little your graduation certificate. It has all the NCO ranks. And it's like, oh, welcome to the Brotherhood. It gives you the NCO creed and all that. Right there in the very bottom, like you got to pull out like a magnifying glass that goes, yeah, dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit.
It's absolutely in there. True story. So I actually, as I said, with like Dave, I started with the game on the computer with the LAN parties in college. Isaac, you were quiet. Don't forget to unmute. How did you find the Halo franchise?
I found it through video games in college. The guys I hung out with were obsessed with the PvP version of it.
Okay.
When they weren't playing, I was there working with the campaign version of it, which was solo or co-op, and larger screen, stalking aliens, and in the PvP version, I wasn't great, but I was okay, and I learned as I went, and learned some things. The pistol was one of those anomalies. You could use a sight on it and take people out more often than with some of the weapons that were oddly supposed to be more powerful. One guy caught me with a bazooka. That was weird. This one guy I talked to, I asked, how far did he get in the campaign? And he told me in a blatant, cold voice, "I don't play campaign." And just totally wrecked everybody on that night with PvP.
Must have been a future Call of Duty player.
Yeah,
I still play the campaigns. I enjoy them.
I do
Call
too.
of Duty too.
Yep.
What about you, JT? How did you find the Halo?
So back, early 2000s, got an Xbox lent to me by a neighbor, and we wound up becoming good friends. Still talk to him to this day. He had all like the Halo and a few other games, but Halo was the one that I mostly played. Borrowed his Xbox for about 2 months. Had a good time. We played couch co-op. I lived way down in the Gulf, like near the Gulf, so we had a lot of storms, and there were days that I couldn't go into work because the front of the neighborhood flooded. And back then there was no remoting in, so I sat down and played Halo.
That's a good way to spend the day. All right, what about you, Stabby? How did you find Halo?
So, if you watch our podcast or have ever listened to it or anything else, you know I have 6 brothers. And the way our house was set up is we all had our own game systems in our rooms. I am the PlayStation girl. My older brother was the Xbox. One of my younger brothers was the Nintendo. The other one was GameCube. Like, we all had our own systems, and it was stay out of my room. Don't touch my games. And then my brother came home. My older brother came home, and he's like, Marissa, because we were the 2 oldest. Everybody was 7 years younger than us, 7 years or more younger than us. And he's like, Marissa, come here. You got to see this new game. You got to see this. I'm like, I fucking hate Xbox, dude. And he's like, just come here. I'm like, well, I get to go in your room. So, and so he sat me down, and he started playing, and I just sat there watching for hours, just watching. And he's like, okay, did you watch enough? And I was like, yeah. So he hands me a controller, and immediately I was just in there with him. And that's how I always learned how to play games. It was never me trying to figure it out. I just watched somebody else play long enough that I knew what to do. And I actually cracked this joke, because as you guys can probably see, we're in the midst of packing. I was like, does everybody know where their game system boxes are? Because I'm going to have to start packing up the game systems. And it dawned on me, I have my PlayStation in our bedroom, the Xbox is in the living room, my son has the Wii and the Switch in his room, and I was like, oh shit, I still set up the house that way. Everybody's got their own shit in their own room. But every once in a while, you know, we sit down, we play, or we recently watched the TV show, the series, and I was really digging that, and I was like, okay, it kind of gives you a little bit more dimension to the characters. And it kind of brought back those old memories of watching my brother play Halo back in the day.
John doesn't take his damn helmet off.
Well, you know why John never took his helmet off, don't you?
Well, apparently because he's a sexy dude.
So you could be John. You keep the helmet on, so no matter who you are, you could identify with the main character.
Absolutely.
We are all John 117.
Anymore.
Not
Not
anymore.
anymore. He took his damn helmet off, and now it's gone. The illusion is
He has
shattered.
such a unique name.
Yeah.
John.
They
Just
might-
like 13 other characters.
Yeah. So, did anybody watch any or pay attention to the lore when you guys were playing, or was it just alien, let's shoot them?
I was big into it. I was big into the lore. I think I played the campaign more than I did PvP because I sucked at PvP. I kept getting, especially when Halo 2 came out, I kept getting hit with a sticky grenade. I'm running around like an idiot, and next thing you know, I'm exploding. But the lore was really cool. I like that the aliens, the Covenant, like multi-species, including the Brood, you know, they all got along for a common goal. And I'm like, man, humans can't even do that.
Yeah, but it took a tyrannical overlord species to make that happen, and you take them out, and that whole conglomeration fell apart. So not too dissimilar from us.
Yeah, but what did they use? They used religion.
Yeah. And they totally misunderstood the purpose of the things they were worshiping, which I think is kind of on par with a lot of people in their take on religion. And
Well, there's actually a reason for that.
Eventually, you lose the message.
Yeah.
There's actually a reason for why they mistook it. If you read deep into the lore, you'll realize that the symbol was upside down. They read it as reclamation rather than reclaimer.
Okay. I did not catch that. And
Yeah.
I read all the books and everything.
In fact, in the games, they constantly, you always see the difference. They always say reclamation, whenever the Spartan is discovering things, right? So the Covenant are always talking about reclamation, but it's always reclaimer when translated to the humans. And so they actually played into that the whole time. And I'll tell you, like, I didn't read the books. I haven't gotten a chance to watch the new show yet.
Yeah, it's not good.
But I loved the amount of
It's
lore.
good. It's
and
just
the
not
amount
Halo.
Sure. It's good sci-fi, just not Halo. I agree with that.
There you go. I love the amount of lore and stuff that they did put into the games. Like, and they explained a lot of it. And even if you didn't catch it, right, you can jump to the books. And, I had plenty of friends who loved the books. And they would kind of feed me a bunch of the tidbits about the lore. And honestly, like, that still sold it for me. And like I think Nick was saying, I play the campaigns for almost every game on an annual basis. Because, like, that's how much... And I don't replay a lot of games. Like, I don't redo a lot of things because there's just so much content out there now. I try and take in as much as I can. But, a buddy of mine and I that we used to play the campaigns, like, we'd play way late into the night when we were in high school. And now, like, we play it whenever we can. So...
Yeah.
Do you have the Master Chief Collection?
Yeah, I was just bringing that up. The Master Chief Collection. Like, once a year, I'll play through the whole thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I will say that.
Oh, it must be that time of year again, because all you're going to hear is throughout the house, because I've got it on the sound bar. And
I can't even be mad though, because you let me go in the room and play World War Z from the beginning, and you let me play Last of Us, and you don't bother me.
No, it's a gaming household. Game recognizes game.
He's like, are you going out of the bedroom for dinner?
Literally recognizes game. Say, oh, you're going to go? Okay, cool. That means I'm going to have like 4 to 5 hours to my lonesome just to wreck aliens as John.
That's the thing some of the modern games don't seem to get is they put music on because they think it's going to be trendy or whatever, and they don't realize sometimes less is more, and you could set the mood that makes your game instantly timeless, or you can put dated, pop culture stuff, and it's like, 10 years from now, well, I know exactly how old this game is.
My kid does that all the time.
Was it Halo 3? Breaking Benjamin has their song in there? Yeah. And that was one of my, it's funny, I was thinking about that. I was like, what was my favorite scene to play? My favorite scene is in the campaign. So they play that as you walk into a room with 2 hunters. And essentially, if you timed it right and you played it right, you could get the song to fade out, killing the last hunter. And it was like one of the coolest cutscenes I thought ever. And that was my goal. Every time I went through that scene was to make that happen.
Nice.
My 13-year-old is the one that constantly comes up and he's like, hey, do you guys ever listen to the soundtracks? This is a banger. And I'm like...
Don't talk to me about that, kid. I was there in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Don't quote the dark magic to me, boy. I was there when it was written.
I tell him all the time, he's like, Mom, Mario Brothers is a banger. And I'm like, we were too busy concentrating on killing Bowser.
I was trying not to die.
I was like, this is why you can't pass level 1. You're too concerned about the music.
So some retro gaming.
Yeah, the one thing I didn't like, and it always amuses me, is how poorly designed the Warthog is when it comes to actually operating it. It's like that's just a death trap on wheels, like trying to control that thing.
Stop making up animals, Griff.
Well, and that was the other joke I was going to make, right? Like why are there 6 pedals and only 4 directions?
Right.
Oh, yeah. There's been people who built life-size replicas of the Warthog, though. There's some YouTube videos out there, which is the cool thing for modern gamers is you've got all of these people that are so into it that are building the things. And so you've got people literally driving around in a Warthog, which is converted various trucks.
That's what the Tesla truck is. It looks just like the Warthog. You throw a gun mount on there, take the doors off. It's a Warthog.
Turns out
the battery operated.
I'm also a huge fan of Halo.
Yeah, maybe. So did you guys watch any of the movies?
I did.
Yep.
Do you have
Forward
a favorite?
Unto Dawn was awesome.
Forward Unto Dawn.
The Axio, yeah, I love that set at the military academy on, was it Reach? I think.
Yes.
It was on Reach. Yes, it ends with the fall of Reach.
And they got the vibe of a military academy right. I think they did pretty good with that. The messing with the newbies. I like the way they did the hands-on training in addition to the classroom. Because a lot of times, I mean, you could write a boring, like you could make it boring if you're not careful. Because, you know, in college, 99% of what you're doing is in a classroom.
Yeah, it's academics. But it felt more like OCS. And that's what I really, and I went through OCS, so I could feel that. It's like it was half classroom, so it was half theory and half, what's the word I'm looking for?
Hands-on, practical.
Maybe applied.
Practical, yeah.
Applied,
So,
there you go.
It's like you learn this, and okay, we learned this in the classroom. Now let's go to the field and apply it. You know, and it didn't always, you know, link up. And it's like, oh, that's different than what you were teaching me, and I just got my ass handed to me. I lost an entire platoon of people. You know.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about with the training is, you know, that old saying, you know, we sweat in peace so we don't bleed in war. And they got that vibe when they showed the training on those movies, because they were messing up left, right, and center. Like, and sometimes I see that in a movie and I'm like, oh, these are supposed to be professional soldiers, and you get mad. But when you show me and they're supposed to be recruits and they're getting it wrong, and I'm like, I don't know if it's because they just didn't have a military advisor, but it works. Right. Or maybe the military advisor had to mess it up on purpose, like some of their tactical formations when they're moving. You know, I'm like, I don't know. But
that's not a wedge formation. What are you doing?
Then you think, oh, yeah, these guys are noobs. Of course they're messing it up. Okay, carry on. So, and I like the first appearance when you finally get to see Master Chief from somebody else's perspective, like when he's jumping in to save them.
Oh, this 8-foot-tall gargantuan giant who's just a tactical god. Like, I remember watching that, and it was, God, I was living up in Northern California, so this has got to be 10 years ago when Forward Unto Dawn came up. I remember the first, because being a huge fan of the series, to see a live-action version of one of your favorite video game icons pop up on the screen, and he's just this massive dude, just massive. Like, he hops on there, and you just, the sound effects that they used, he felt heavy. He felt large.
It was all the camera angle, the way they did it.
That too.
In charge.
He was, man. It's just like, I got goosebumps. I get goosebumps thinking about it right now. I'm all goose pimply.
So my favorite Halo game was ODST, where you get to play the Special Forces Marines. And so seeing them landing on the planet when they have that scene where the ODST just start dropping, and it's just like, oh, that was love right there. Chef's kiss, awesome to see
Feet
that.
First into hell.
Feet first into. I'm just mad I didn't think of that first and write it myself.
Right.
That is awesome. I had tried to come up with like versions of it.
The cool thing about ODST
in the military. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah, no. I was gonna say the cool thing about ODST was like it was a really nice break, and it still had an amazing story, right? Yes. And then they took that story and they continued it with some of the characters, right? And you got a lot of almost extra lore out of it that you don't see, right? You get kind of the bog standard human take on how life's going, you know, while Master Chief is running around blowing up aliens, but he can't be everywhere at once. And so like a bunch of people have to step up too. And so you get like the ODST guys, and you know, that story, like, and the music, you know, coming back to music setting the tone, the music in that game set the tone really well. And every time I play that game, I just like, I feel depressed and then slowly gain back hope as you go through the story, which is wonderful.
And the cool thing about the ODST game, the commercials for that came harder than most Hollywood movies these days. I mean, like the scene,
hard. There was no reason for it.
And then
there's no reason to go that hard.
When they're like, when the guy dies, and then you see later with the 21 gun salute, and it's just like, oh, that hit the field.
Dude, I was ready to go. Before I'd even been to combat. I was still in, you know. And this is what I was going to bring up before, you know, David was giving his point. Like all we had when I was starting the military before the Halo games came out, as a paratrooper, all we had was like aliens quotes. Express elevator to hell, going down. And now we get all these badass quotes. So I'm jealous of the new paratroopers and new soldiers that get to use ODST quotes and Halo quotes, because I didn't have that. I just had like 1987 Aliens, and I quoted the shit out of that movie.
So my platoon sergeant was a huge fan of Starship Troopers, the movie. So he quoted that when he promoted me to sergeant. It's yours until you die or I replace you. And we were doing that as we're getting ready to cross the berm into Iraq, and I'm like, that's not intimidating until you die.
No response.
Yeah. I mean, if I was in charge, I'd have done that too, but I was on the receiving end this time.
Team deathmatch, hardcore.
Yeah.
Sergeant Johnson, if we're going to talk about like quotable things, Sergeant Johnson had the best quotes.
Yeah. Oh, all of his were bangers.
The grunts were hilarious, right? Like they gave those guys a great personality and wonderful. But Sergeant Johnson, especially Halo 2, like the ETA damn quick, like I use that day to day, all the time.
That's a good one,
ETA damn quick. But his other one where he's like, man, they keep sending us messages, regret. I wonder what it means. We regret being alien bastards. We regret coming to Earth, and we most certainly regret that the Corps just blew up our raggedy-ass fleet. Hoorah!
Didn't he always have the cigar too?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because he was modeled after Apone from Aliens.
Okay, I can see that.
We need a badass black NCO space soldier, and they're like, why don't we just use Apone? Like, we already got that guy. Now, this time he just isn't going to die. He's going to survive all 3 games. Well, 4. I think he survived, most of the games.
I don't think they ever show him dying.
No.
Not that I recall.
Because I remember
Legend has it, he's still yelling at movies, even to this day.
Because I remember seeing him in Halo 4. And I think he's actually in Guardians, too.
Yeah, well, it was funny because at the end of Halo 3, they sort of play it like he dies, but they don't actually like confirm it.
Yeah, they never show it.
And then you find out in Halo 4 that they did that so that way if they needed to, they could bring him back.
Right. Because he was such an awesome character. As far as non-NPCs that you don't get to, because an NPC, you don't get to play them. But I always hoped with each advancing game that they would give us a level where we get to play as Johnson.
Oh yeah, that would have
been awesome. And you just see through the first person view, just puffs of smoke coming up while he's just whacking aliens. That would have been hilarious. I would have loved that.
I would have wanted the chance to use some of his one-liners where you could pick the right ones to go yell at some random PFC or whatever. Just
a little ETA dead, right? Damn now,
So I really dig that. I also like the back lore because everyone knows Halo for when the aliens get there, right? Because they glass reach and spoiler, right? So and then the invasion goes from there, which is why both Forward Unto Dawn and the book Halo Reach is so pivotal because you see the first hand of that invasion. But the cool thing about that movie and those books is you see the lore from before because not America. So the Earth had sent out colonies, and we were right at the point where the colonies were like, screw you, why are we paying you taxes? We're going to do our own thing. We're over here being all America while you guys are back on Earth, right? It's basically the American Revolution in space setting up with the insurrectionists, the Ennies. And so when you're reading the Halo Reach book and you're watching Forward Unto Dawn, which are 2 separate stories set in the same window, you hear that oh man, I'm Team Ennie. We go around and we take their kids and we send them off to die. And it's the lore is just so it makes sense, right? It's stuff we could all relate to. It's somehow a mix of the American Revolution meets the anti-Vietnam era with shades of Iraq 1, just based on when everything came out. And the symmetry of it all together was just beautiful, of the lore, the way they created it.
Yeah, they did a great job of helping you hate Oni.
Oh yeah. And they kind of you the Doctor at one point, and you like Cortana, but then you see how they make Cortana, and with the redundancy or rampancy?
Rampancy is when they go insane.
Yeah, and so like when you see what's involved in that, and you're like, ooh, is this even ethical? And they actually dive into that when they showed some of the cutscenes with Oni.
They touch on that in the series too.
Yeah, in the books, they go hard
Yes.
on it.
The
In
books,
the
the
games, even.
series, you kind of look at Cortana as like a tragic character, even though it's AI. What they do
Mostly.
to her,
Is
it's
she AI, or I got some sentience vibes from the way
She
she's
is AI, but it's the way she was made that used a piece of Halsey's brain.
Well, it used a map of her brain. I don't think they actually included part of her brain, like brain matter. They just scanned their neural patterns.
I'd have to
yeah,
go
but
back
they
and
did
read that.
so. No, actually, I think they did use part of
Yeah,
her brain.
I think they did use a physical part of her brain.
It was
Interesting.
they had a specific term for it too, and the name escapes me. But
Yeah.
they were able to digitally encode via DNA part of her brain into Cortana's. And I just find it funny too that like,
which is why that container was so special in ODST,
yeah.
because that was the only one.
Okay.
And it's funny that Microsoft phones use, instead of Siri, they have Cortana, which always makes me laugh.
Well, I mean, how many teenage
like,
boyfriends? Teenage boys had Cortana as their girlfriend.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
She always reminded me of the red.
my first side chick was Cortana.
Stabby, don't.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Down, Stabby.
I'm kidding.
Nice down.
Everybody knows it's Alexa now.
Listening to you, dipshit.
She's always listening.
I mean, she's gonna randomly start timing off over there.
No, she'll just send me digital flowers like she always does.
I actually thought about, as a joke, making a character in one of my books named both Cortana and Alexis. So when the audio book, use both of them in the book. So when the audio narrator reads it, it would trigger everyone's smart home stuff. But then I decided I didn't want them to hate me and like never buy my books again, so I just didn't.
So it turns out that when I scream at my kitchen portal, Alexa, my next door neighbor's kitchen portal also hears me. So they randomly wake up to 90s rap.
Because why not?
Yeah, because who doesn't want to be awakened by NWA? I mean,
I'll wake up and I'll be like, okay, I need to do dishes, get ready, make breakfast, coffee, everything. And I'm like, hey, Alexa, play NWA. And apparently their Alexa also hears me that early in the morning.
Because you got to scramble them eggs, bitches.
All right, we're going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the man, and then we're going to jump back into this discussion. We were having so much fun, I forgot.
They were called the Human Marine Corps, but their cause was never humanity's, until the sleeper awoke. A century ago, all but 2 members of Lance Scipio's unit were executed for bringing dishonor to his regiment. Now he wakes into a strange new time and is tasked with whipping into shape the worst squad of misfits in the entire Human Marine Corps. The price of failure? Death. This completed series is set in the worlds of the hit Human Legion series by Tim C. Taylor, now released with a special novelette titled No Marine Left Behind, Freedom Can Be Won. So dive into this debut novel by author J.R. Handley as he takes you on an action-filled sequence of military science fiction glory.
All right, thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. And now let's get back into the wild world of Halo, the Halo franchise. So Isaac, you've been a little too quiet, so we're gonna work on this. Did you read any of the books?
I did not read any of the books. It was all the game.
Okay, what made you decide to just stick with the game? Because the books, they go hard.
I don't know. It was sort of like I didn't get many recommendations for the book at the time, or the movies. I appreciated the cinematics in the game, though.
Okay. Well, you're going to hear it from me today. I actually recommend the books and the movies. I haven't seen the new one just because I don't have whatever. I think Peacock did the Halo movies.
I love Peacock.
Yes, but they don't love my wallet. So
come on, nobody.
family friendly, Stabby, family friendly. Go just refill your drink. We're gonna carry on. All right. What about you, JT? Did you ever read any of the books, JT?
Yeah, I absolutely love the books. The one author that I really fangirl over is Karen Travis.
Oh yeah,
And she writes in Star Wars. She writes in Halo and Gears of War, and I love her writing. And also, you can tell when it's a Karen Travis book just looking at the spine as you go along in the section, looking, and you see, normal size novel. Then a Karen Travis novel, it's like 3 times the size, and so you just get that much more story.
Yeah, the other one is if you go to the Halopedia, they do not have the Karen Travis books listed for some strange reason.
Actually, I thought I saw them there.
Halopedia.org/Halo novels. Yeah, they don't have any of her books.
Yes, they do. Actually, that's where I saw it. It's right there, the Kilo 5 trilogy, about halfway down the page.
Oh, I missed it. Okay. Oh, there you're right. You're right. I stand corrected. I don't know. For me, I like the Todd McLaren books. I enjoyed the Fall of Reach, the original series of books. I like the Cole Protocol. I think John Davis, did those. The whole idea, behind the Cole Protocol, if you didn't know, dear listener, was the basic idea is if you're jumping to go to your next location in your spaceship, and you think you're being followed, you can't go to Earth. And if that means you have to self-destruct so they can't get your hard drive and know where Earth is, that's just what you got to do. Because in the beginning they hadn't found Earth, and it was all about protecting the location. And I like they added gravity to the world. We're like, oh crap, this is serious, because if they glassed Earth, that would be bad for Earth.
Yep.
Not like we're not trying to glass ourselves.
I imagine glassing a planet's bad for the planet in general.
Yeah, but it's although you get the impression from Halo that the other planets in the outer colonies and whatnot, they were equally as inhabited. So it isn't these are just small, tiny little colonies that are startups.
Right.
That they were fully developed worlds in their own right. So as long as one planet survived, humanity would live. But obviously they emphasize protection of Earth because that's where the UNSC was located.
So I'm trying to remember which story it was where they had the 2 AIs that would trade off every few years to avoid rampancy. One would run the farm equipment, the other would run the colony, and then every 4 years, something like that, they would switch place.
Yeah, they switch place.
So that one would basically be doing mindless labor so that it wouldn't continue to gather data and continue further into rampancy.
And so that's what the rampancy was in the Halo lore. The AIs only have so much storage capacity of all of the acquired knowledge. And so if the longer they lived, the more data they stored, and it would slowly drive them insane until I think it was a 7-year window where they would basically be taken offline and scrubbed, and then a new one would. So the AIs had a 7-year life, which is always kind of sad because you get attached to those AIs, and then to know in 7 years, it's a digital puppy essentially. It's not going to live very long.
Right. And it also increased the chances of being corrupted, which is what happened in Halo 3 with Cortana.
Yeah.
The corruption started happening.
So Shady, have you read any of the books?
I never did. I distinctly remember checking one out of a library at some point way back when, but I don't remember finishing it, and I couldn't tell you which one it was. And unfortunately, that was one of those things that I would like to do. I did have them recommended strongly to me a lot. I just gotta find the time for it. That's the drawback.
Yeah, I recommend it. Halo is one of the franchises I really actually like the lore in the background. That's in the background of the world. I like the civil war that was brewing amongst humanity, with the insurrections, the Ennies. I like the way they came up with derogatory slang, because that's something about humanity. Whenever we go to war with someone, we always otherize them. So that's why we come up with the names for the bad guys. They're not the Germans, they're the Jerrys, because it's easier to hate a Jerry, right? Because you kind of make them not as people.
Skinnies, Hajis. Yeah,
Innies,
we're good at that. We've been doing that. The Egyptians started that way back when, to dehumanize their enemy, because it made a person more comfortable with killing human beings, because that's not a natural phenomenon. That's something that's kind of hardwired into our DNAs. killing other people.
Well, and that was, that's a big thing from humanity, but they also played into that. Not talking about the books, but I'm sure it was there too. But they played into that with Master Chief, right? The whole thing about Spartan 117 is that they dehumanized him to a certain extent, that his whole thing is he's going to complete the mission no matter the cost. And he was the perfect soldier, and he will kill whatever's in his way, blow up whatever's in his way, right? Like we joke about his one snarky line of what is it? Thought I'd try shooting my way out. Mix things up a little. Right? Like, it's a great line. But then you think about where it's coming from, especially with him, where it's like, no, that's his number one answer to pretty much everything.
Yeah.
I think he was
battle, and the other half is always violence.
I think he was grabbed at like 10 years old and basically indoctrinated from that point forward as a soldier.
Yeah, and that's before they even started the super soldier serums and the Spartan programs on him.
Right.
They touched base on that in the show.
They did, and some of the movies touched on it too. There's a scene where when they're going through their training and they're trying to get their rage out, and they've just been upgraded, where they go to the gym and they get in a fight with some ODST Marines, which are basically like the top 1% of the 1% type special forces guys. And these kids, they're basically teenagers, beat the ever-loving crap out of them and permanently retire some of them, not by killing them, but just by, breaking spines as you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the books, he actually did kill one.
Okay.
That's where that came from, because he had borrowed the weights to go into the gym or whatever, like the boxing ring area, because it was heavier gravity there. And so he could actually make the weights weigh more so he could get a better workout. ODST came in and wanted to use the ring. And so they decided to have a friendly little sparring match. Well, he didn't understand what sparring meant. And he went full combat mode and just took him out like seconds.
He didn't know sparring. He knew live and let live. He knew fight and survive. That's it.
In the training, they put those kids, and it's kind of horrific. They kidnap them from their families. Then they give the families a flash-grown clone that was going to die pretty quickly. So the parents thought their kid had died, and they had to go. Like, as a parent myself, imagining that horror, and the government, secret black ops people did that. And then I started thinking, like, that tracks about what I expect from any government's, clandestine operation services. That doesn't sound outside the realm of possibility to me.
Right.
But that's always the running theme of the Halo, like the idea that humanity's darkest deed, which was kidnapping these poor kids and turning them into killers, is ultimately what saved them, because these soldiers happen to be coming online right about the time the aliens show up. And, you know what I mean? And it's...
You're describing the Ranger Regiment, essentially, in the Army. You
were not kidnapped at childhood. I mean,
no, but you still got a bunch of 8-year-old kids.
Some of their maturity levels.
Yeah, it's similar but different, But that's what I've always viewed the Ranger Regiment is. You're taking these 18-year-old kids and you're making them the most specialized, efficient killers that walk the planet.
Shock troops, yeah.
Yeah, shock troops. Like, it's that dog in a cage that you poke with a stick, and then you just aim the cage to where you want destroyed, and that's what the Spartan program was.
I can't remember which one of the shows it was. There was one that actually shows the training they're going through, and they legit all the way to the Spartan level of they drop them off in the woods and be like, I hope you live to make it back to base, because if you miss the shuttle, you're X miles away, and you'll probably die from the elements.
They put them through the Agogi, which is what Spartans went through,
and it was very. Kind of pit everybody against each other, and then in the end, the lesson is what it always is at training: is in the end, you only live by sticking with each other, right? Because you're all the family that matters.
It was all a teamwork exercise. They just had to realize it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts of the training was where the instructors were actually, like, somebody came to observe. The instructors were in like heavy construction, like mobile suits. And the guy observing was asking about that, saying, "Isn't that dangerous?" He said, "No, that's to protect them."
Yeah, protect the instructors.
Yes.
So,
because we're creating some badasses, and these guys are going to use their wits, and they're going to use their physical gifts that were given to them to survive in any way possible.
And then the horrors you see of not everyone lived through the transition process to make them these super soldiers with the serums, which is why in later books they go to the Spartan War program.
Well, they had different stages. So Spartan 1 is John. Then they had Spartan 2s. Spartan 3s were just a chemical, and Spartan 4s were the next stage.
So there was one of them where they didn't go through the body modifications. They just got the rest of it because there was less chance of rejection. And they were basically taking all of the war orphans in this lore that were left by and of course they've got a powerful motive. Like, you just killed my entire family. Screw you, alien scum. And they're like, so I've got a gun and a drug that'll make you a super killer. You want revenge? Come over here. And I mean, can you imagine?
Team. It's called the Revenges.
I mean, can you imagine the war crimes those people are putting on those? Wait, is it a war crime if it's against aliens?
It's never a war crime the first time.
Yes, I know. The fat electrician taught me that well.
Winners write the rules, baby.
That's right.
Right. And the history.
And the history. That's the other cool thing is later in the lore when the war ends, the war does end, you see the interacting with the aliens and the conflict that's still there just under the surface and the intrigue. And the aliens, essentially, those different races split back up again because without that religious tyrant overhead. And there's still, like, the war still, at some levels, never goes away because that clash of culture.
Well, you see it a bit with, I think it was, Halo 2 or 3, when they're finally working with the Covenant. Like, they already are at each other's throats, like, constantly.
Well, it's not necessarily the Covenant. They're working with the elites.
The heretics, yeah.
Yeah,
the ones that were cast out, which everybody knew them from Halo 1 as the elites.
The elites.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the name of the actual race is, though.
It's funny. I just was going through the file.
I think it's Sangheili.
Yeah,
I think so.
Sangheili. The Sangheili.
Yeah, that's them.
Yeah, but that was one of those, like, he's like, you just glassed half of Africa. I should have glassed the entire continent. Like. They're again, great lines, but then you realize, like, those lines are representing a lot of the conflict that they have to get over to figure out how to work together because they've been fighting for so long.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And what was nice about that was seeing that once the false religious leader was taken out, how everything fractured and splintered like it really would.
Right.
And then the strongest took over with the brutes.
It was definitely an allegory to human behavior, so that's one of the things that you eventually pick up on in the Halo lore is that you're fighting this thing that's alien and you want to talk crap about it, you want to judge it, and then when you get through the series of games, you realize, man, this is really, we're just fighting ourselves, just different versions. The same things happen, especially on the Covenant side, because it was a highly religious culture. The whole thing was inspired by religion, and when you take out the figurehead, you take out the religious leader, and then you start seeing the infighting and all that stuff, and then the heretics start showing up.
Yeah, the factions emerge.
Yeah, every cult has that happen when the leader gets taken out.
Yeah, it's definitely an allegory to human behavior, and I think that's probably why this game is so successful is because it is such a mirror to who we are, and so when we play these games, we're really looking at ourselves. Not to get too deep, because it's a video game after all, but
it's more than that because the world they created is I think it supersedes just a video.
You're absolutely right that it's more than a video game. I mean, it's inspired almost a culture in itself. You got Halo fans that are devout into the lore, devout into the game. It's practically a religion of itself. And you don't really see you don't see that in video games.
No,
you really don't.
And Ready, Set, Run called it, right? And somebody will correct me on this, but they created that video, Halo the Future of Gaming, right after, I think, 2 dropped. And they go through the whole thing where it's like, Halo 3, finish the fight. Halo 4, start another fight. And then they go through, like, what it does to the human race.
Halo 5, our hero's a villain.
No, it was Superstars. Halo 5 was Nintendo branch. Superstars in Dreamland. And the opening cutscene was so long that nobody ever played the game, so they jumped right to Halo 6. But yeah, they talked about, like, everybody's playing Halo, so now we fight wars via Halo, and now countries are fighting 1,000 or 2,000 aside or something like that, and then eventually, like,
they made a whole game called Halo Wars where it was like Command and Conquer.
Yeah. I love that game.
There's two of them.
Was cool. Yeah.
So the idea of using the game as a way to do war by proxy, like they did that in the movie Spies Like Us, where the world leaders were playing Risk at the end. A classic movie. If you haven't seen it, people, you're missing out. You should check it out.
No, you can't tell our viewers about that because that's JLG 20 classified.
So
they don't have the right.
Did anybody watch the fan made content that was out on the YouTube? So you had like red team, blue team,
red versus blue,
red versus blue by Rooster Teeth.
Fan. Yeah.
What does it say? Not listening and
there's a fine line between not listening and not caring, and I like to think I walk that line every day.
Outstanding.
It's a very
Is that church?
Line. Church.
Yeah. Church.
So did you watch it? Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say so I jumped into Red versus Blue like late season 4, season 5, somewhere in there, and I watched I watched that series over and over and over. It's wonderful, and they're I'll give them a free plug here. Their last season for Red versus Blue, as far as I know, ever, is coming out this year here late in the spring. So if you haven't caught up on it, catch up on it. I loved it. So
did you watch that, Isaac? The Red versus Blue?
No, I saw it, but for some reason I never watched it.
Okay, I will say
definitely check it out, Isaac.
You should. We recommend it. I will say Halo is one of those franchises, much like Star Wars, that seems to love its fans. Star Trek, they're going to sue their fans into ever-loving poverty if they try to make fan content. Like, oh, you like our stuff? See you in court. Whereas Halo and Star Wars realize that they don't exist if they don't build that fan subculture.
Right.
So they never go after the creators of the fan content. In some cases, they've hired from.
That's what I was going to say. I'll do you one better. In all the Halo games, so starting in 2 or 3, they almost always included some of the voice actors from Red versus Blue and from other Halo-based content that made it big. And they would just they would give them small little bit parts or something or Easter eggs you could go find. And Halo 3, you could go find essentially Griffin Simmons arguing in a corner. They don't look like Griffin Simmons, but you know their voices, and you go find them, and they're just sitting there arguing about the door. And it's it's the small things like that to me Halo did it well.
Did you guys ever see the video that started Red versus Blue?
No.
So the whole, I guess, emergence of Rooster Teeth started with them using grenades to get a warthog up on top of a hill where you normally are not allowed to have it. They recorded the video of them doing it. It took a long time for them to get it up there, but once they got it up there, they're like, well, what do we do now? So they uploaded the video, and they noticed one day one person from Microsoft saw it. Then the next day, 3 people from Microsoft IPs started accessing the video. And then the next day, it was 150 IPs from Microsoft. And so after that, I think within 2 weeks or something somebody from Microsoft actually reached out to them. Nice. They started off with that. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was basically shenanigans.
We like shenanigans.
So I will say this about Halo fans. We, with Nick doing what he does for, a living, making comics and stuff, we do a lot of Comic-Cons and whatnot. And we did one in Vegas. It was called Fanboy Expo. It was one of the first cons that they brought back after the pandemic and everything. And I don't know if you guys have experienced this or if you've heard of it, but sometimes some cosplayers, they get a little judgy, and they're like, Well, on our second day at the con, I was dressed as 1950s poodle skirt Captain America. My dress was huge and floofy. Instead of a poodle, there was a Captain Shield. Pulled off the whole 1950s barrel rolls. It was an awesome costume. And this 6'4" Master Chief walks up to me, and I'm like, my little 5'7" butt is hi. And he's like, we need to take a picture. You look awesome. And I was like, well, thank you. And he's like, super soldiers got to stick together. And I was just sitting there like, okay. All right. And so I got to take a picture with Master Chief. It's out there somewhere in the world. But I just thought it was pretty cool because every person that I've ever met that cosplays as him is such a sweet human being. Like there's some other, areas that they're not so nice, but every single Halo person that I've ever met, they're just so sweet. Their fan base is definitely a different breed.
I'd agree with that, right? Like I've never run into Halo fans who have really been like, gatekeepers or anything, right? Where it's like, oh, if you didn't do this, you're not a true Halo fan. I have never had that problem. Now, PvP matches are different, but that's not Halo fandom. That is just straight gaming.
That's gaming's gonna game.
Right. No, but like true, like real Halo fans and stuff, like I've never seen nothing but good things said about Halo fans, and I've never seen anything but good things come from Halo fans. So like it's one of, if I would have to pick a fandom to be like real excited about, that would be one of those.
Yeah, you're definitely right.
There's actually a Marine that's like 6 foot something tall. He's an enlisted guy, and he made actual Halo armor for a cosplay, and then took a picture with him standing next to like a normal 5'7" Marine, so you could see the height difference. And he's not even as tall as the full Halo, because he didn't get that tall. But it's a comical picture of a Marine in dress blues, and then somebody in a Halo suit just towering over him. It's floating out there.
And
Sounds awesome.
I do the con circuit, and you're always going to see a representative of the Halo franchise in one way or the other. I've seen 5'4" Master Chiefs, compared to like guys that are like 6'5", and it's always complimentary. Like, as long as you put just a minute part, a minute bit of effort into building your cosplay, whether it's an ODST, whether it's a Spartan or whatever, they complement each other, and they ramp each other up. They lift each other up. They're like, oh man, I gotta get a picture with you, things like that. And it's probably one of the best fandoms. There's no toxicity at all, like you see in like Star Wars, Star Trek. It's like, oh my god, that's not regulation. That doesn't look right. Those stitches are wrong. Like you see in Star Wars, especially in like the 501st. Halo is probably one of the best fandoms that I've been a part of, and I'm proud to be a part of it. And everybody's super excited and super just accepting, because you're involved in the lore, you're involved in the process. Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
And he's still 2 feet too short, but no one's going to say anything because he looks the part.
Yep.
That's probably
excellent work.
Yeah. That's great. Oh, that's TV show quality. That's badass.
Yeah. Have you done any cosplay, JT or Isaac, of the various fandoms that you're in?
No, I mostly cosplay as a biker.
I can see that.
You should see my photo on Amazon.
We'll link all that in the show notes, people. You can see his biker cosplay. What about you, Isaac? Have you done any of the cosplay stuff? Is that your bag of tea?
I haven't cosplayed Halo-wise. If I could cosplay, I would totally do it, especially when it comes to masks. I mean, like if I did, it would be probably something to do with Lord of the Rings, if I had to. But concerning Halo, no, I haven't.
You can't go wrong with the classics. So Halo is a good thing is it can also be a bond. Like my youngest is special needs, and he didn't communicate normally for the first several years. So it was always kind of like, because when you were sitting side by side and you're gaming together, you could actually communicate because he doesn't have to look at you. He's looking at the screen as you're, slaying your way through the horde of elites or the little minions that you shoot and the gas tank pops and they fly around real cool for a little bit of comical relief. So yeah, that's the one thing I like about the game like Halo, with that kind of experience where you can play like just side by side without having to go strangers all over the world. is it can be those bonding moments too, which I mean, really any first person shooter would give you that, but for me, Halo always is that game for me.
Yeah,
So.
split screen Halo is, in the Halo campaign, I mentioned a buddy of mine. So Ian and I, like, we would sit up late nights. I'd be at his house like till 3-4 in the morning, and we would just be running through the campaign. And we've already played it a million times at that point, but it was just one of those things where he and I, like, we really bonded over that. And it was such a cool experience to be able to have that, that we just kept it going, right? So even though I'm moving worldwide and he's still back in our hometown, like, we constantly get together. And now, granted, we've added on other games now, but we never fail to go back to Halo. Right now, we're both playing through. He's played through the Infinite campaign and I haven't, so he and I are co-oping that, and so that's just another big thing for us.
I really enjoyed Halo Infinite. I'm like one lore piece away from having the game 100%.
Nice. How long did it take you to do that?
Far too short. I wish it had taken longer.
Yeah, that's the one thing about some of the campaigns is once you beat it, that's why, I'll start it on easy mode. I know sacrilegious, and then every time I play through, I up the level just to give me more experiences, right? Because if you go hardcore the first time, once you beat it, it's over.
So I had a couple of videos that I uploaded from Halo Infinite where I would call in a vehicle and one of the Marines would be standing where the vehicle is supposed to come in. Yeah. He caught it.
Nice.
A few times the vehicle just pops in and just all you see is the Marine just go flat.
Yeah, the Marines in the game, when you're playing with the main character as the Master Chief, those Marines don't last very long. They tend to get smushed or just accidentally bumped. So those poor guys have short lives.
And you spend so much effort rescuing them.
Yeah.
Sheila.
So do you guys have a favorite weapon in the Halo franchise that you like to use?
I love the Needler.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Needler's fun.
Huge fan.
What about
Shotgun.
you, Isaac?
The shotgun from Halo 2.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The beast.
What was that, Shady?
No, I was going to say the shotgun's really nice, but Isaac brought it up earlier, the sniper pistol.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
That thing was probably my favorite of all time.
Isn't it like a 7.62 pistol?
Yeah, but they gave it like essentially the sniper scope, and you could essentially like one-shot, headshot everything. It was wonderful.
So I have this thing I do when I'm playing because I like the gun so much. Like whenever I find a better weapon, I can't just leave a weapon with bullets in it. I will find a wall if I have to, just to pull the trigger and shoot everything dry. Then I throw it down and I grab the next one because no one else coming behind me is going to play with my toys.
Damn right.
So I used to do run-throughs where I would only use human weapons.
Okay.
And not trade off. And that made some levels, especially on heroic, extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite was the elite rifle.
Nice. I like that one too. What about you, Stabby?
Oh. Sorry.
I am not one that could name a single weapon off to you.
Do you have a preference? Is it the pistol, the shotgun, the sniper rifle?
Whatever I have, that works. I'm the same in every game. It's so sad. Even like when I'm playing World War Z, it's whatever I have in my hand that just happens to have ammo in it, and I can just shoot the zombies. I'm so bad when it comes to it. As long as it works, I don't care what it is.
I like the energy sword because you could have fun with that going up. It's like, Jedi, but cooler.
My buddy liked that one.
Yeah, I also like the rocket they have, which is basically like a modern take on an RPG type deal.
Yep.
And sometimes I'll even use it just to shoot one like tiny nobody soldier, just because why not? It's there. I've got it. There's an enemy target. Shoot the hell out of it. Why not? There's no kind of
intimidation.
Nick absolutely loves playing all of the different games with me sitting next to him. I'm like, okay, At your 10 o'clock, watch out. Sniper. At your 3 o'clock, nope, you got a freaking guy. You got a guy over there hiding behind the boxes. Watch out. And I don't have to play at all. I don't have to worry about it, but I'm the one that's like, you have a sleeper right over there. Watch your ass.
And I got to teach my wife how to be a spotter.
Good luck, sir. Good luck. If we don't hear from you again, well,
and I spoke for him, and then I'm like, okay, we're good for another like 2 minutes till the next campaign. Okay, do you need a refill on your drink? I need a refill on my drink. This is getting heavy.
Now I know why you married her. Well done, sir. Well done. So sometimes I get to like I'll do funny things just for the heck of it because save points happen, so why not? If you guys see In the Army Now with Pauly Shore, where he's going through the scene on the AT-4, he goes, "Was that our drug drill sergeant?" As he puts it backwards and fires it. And I always thought that was so hilarious that I sometimes will shoot at our own equipment. That's really good on the Reach campaign because it's just civilian equipment all over the place, and you just shoot it because why not? It's there, and you can watch it explode. I sometimes will do that to the interactive scenery. So.
Oh, I love how much like explosive interactive scenery, and one of the things that I've really enjoyed about the Infinite campaign is being able to pick up the explosive barrels and hurl them. And I have probably more kills from that currently than I have on any other weapon.
Yeah. So, what about you, Isaac? Any other weapons you like to use?
Does the Banshee from Halo 2 count?
What's a vehicle? That was going to be the next question. So that's your favorite vehicle?
Definitely.
Okay. What about you, JT? Do you have a favorite vehicle in that one?
Yeah, actually, it's a toss-up between the Banshee and the Ghost, depending on where I want to go. Because the Ghost is nice for how fast it is, especially in like Halo Infinite. The Ghost is really well done, but the Banshees are really nice for being able to get airborne, do strafing runs.
Yeah.
Me and a buddy used to do Banshee Wars in one of the maps where it was just a bunch of caves. I managed to knock him off of his Banshee once and trap him on like one of the little cliff sides.
The cool thing is when you play as the Master Chief is you can jump on the back of them and throw them off their own vehicles. That is like one of the most fun things to do. Yep. And then sometimes if you do it right, they don't die, they just roll, and you can get off and let them get back in it and then do it again. And I'm like, just when they think they're back in the fight, I strike again. So, what about you, Nick? Do you have a favorite vehicle?
It's the Banshee because that's what I terrorized the boy with. Because he thought he was hot shit when we were playing one-on-one. I put some Blood Gulch. I let him set up the weapon parameters. And then I went in and set up the vehicle parameters. And then as soon as I got hopped on that thing, I ate his lunch. I terrorized this 12-year-old boy for at least 3 hours.
This is how they learn. It's called life lessons.
He's pulling his hair. Like, I don't know why you keep beating me. I'm like, because I'm God. I don't quote dark magic to me, boy. I was here when it was written. This is Halo. You fucking noob.
Shady, what about you? I'm guessing it's probably, given what you do, I'm guessing it's something flight related, but I could be wrong.
Oh, no. I mean, granted, I do enjoy the flying vehicles, but I'm a Gosshog person. Although I really wanted to quote Red versus Blue, or not Red versus Blue, Halo 3, where he's like, tank beats Hunter. Tank beats everything. Man, this is cool.
Sheila!
Scorpion. The Scorpion is awesome. I love that tank.
Yep.
Wonderful.
It's probably
I
not
love
very
even
practical.
more after Red versus Blue.
Yes.
I don't know anybody else. Because, now when I get into the Scorpion, I'm hearing Sheila's voice.
Sheila, no.
Sheila,
wait, who's Sheila?
no.
She was the lady in the
Sheila?
tank. She was my friend.
Calm down,
I played with a friend of mine who was a Cav Scout, in the infantry. That's the running joke, and they've gotten rid of the MOS, which is just tragic. But that was the running joke, is we would make fun of them, and they would claim to be basically infantry. And I actually played with one of those guys who was a Cav Scout. We'd game together. And he's like, I noticed you keep getting the tank, JR. Admit it, you want to be a Cav Scout, don't you? And he used to taunt me with his spurs, and I'm like, you son of a bitch.
Dude, my first job after I was a newly minted commissioned officer was a Bradley commander. and you had two types of themes going on in that thing while we were running it. I was either quoting Red versus Blue, and my Bradley was Sheila, or I was doing stuff from the trench run in A New Hope. So I'd have everything going on, comms going on, and be like, well, I'm just rattling rounds off the Bushmaster. And I was like, the whole time, I'm like, man, why was I such a stickler for light infantry? This is the shit. I have a mini tank, and it is awesome.
We're going to take your blue cord away. You keep talking like that, sir.
No. It's still an infantry position. I checked.
It definitely is.
So what about you, JT? Do you have a favorite vehicle in the game?
So Ghost and Banshee are great. I do love the tank, especially when you get the large waves. You can run over them.
Yeah.
If you can catch them. But yeah, I use the Ghost a lot, especially against the elite shields. Get that thing up to speed, you can wipe them out with one hit.
Yeah. Okay. Stabby, I know you mostly watch, but do you have a favorite vehicle in those, or are you just ambivalent there too? No? Okay. The other thing I like is they have these randomly placed turret positions that you can get behind just for the fun of it. Even if there's no enemy there, I still like to shoot them. I'm not going to lie. I'll shoot the cannon wall if I have to.
JR, do you remember that episode we did so long ago, called The Last of Us?
I do.
Now, you want to talk about turrets and weapon systems and vehicles, I will talk those ones with you all day long. I'm a PlayStation girl.
PlayStation is a good second game system. It's like a good second place. I don't mind it as a second.
I love the zombie games. You should know who you're talking to.
So speaking of zombies, then I'll ask you this. Did you like the Flood, which are basically like Halo version of space zombies?
I love the Flood.
So here's the kicker. Every time that I sit down and I watch Nick play this game, I just hear Ripley in my head. Get away from her, you bitch! That's where my brain goes.
So JT, did you like that slice of the lore with the Flood, the spore species that just consumes?
I did actually. I've read all of the lore on that, so the Flood's origins and everything is very interesting.
What was it that intrigued you about the lore? I don't know that I've dove that deep into the spore part of things.
So basically, they are. This is a huge spoiler for anybody who hasn't played the game yet.
The game's been around for 20 years, JT. I think we're okay.
Bite your mouth. It was just yesterday.
So,
darling.
The one race that basically created everything is called the Precursors. They created the Forerunners and humanity, all of them, everything in the universe. Basically, they created, and then they are the ones that also created the concept of the mantle. Whenever they decided who was going to next inherit the mantle, they had initially thought the Forerunners, but determined them unworthy and decided on humanity. This pissed off the Forerunners, so the Forerunners started a war with them and went to destroy their creator. Well, that's where we start to delve into where the Flood comes from, because of the Precursors that survived whatever, they turned basically into this dust that humanity later discovered, millions of years later. I think it's somewhere around 10 million. Started infecting their own little creatures with it because it started developing desirable traits as pets and whatnot. And then later, those things eventually emerged and became the Flood. But what happened over that 10 million years was this dust that was supposed to rebirth the Precursors got corrupted and diseased and whatnot. And that's where the Flood comes from. They are a corrupted form of the Precursors.
Those are the scariest parts of the game. When the Flood
and the music for that was awesome.
Exactly.
The jump scenes.
Oh yeah, it was. I will say, the first time one of the bodies jumps up at you in Halo 2, it was one of those where I was like, I didn't realize Halo was going to go down the horror streak, and it was the Flood were like the monster, right? You're just like,
Yep.
I don't know when this is gonna turn. It's a fun game. It's a fun game. I don't know when it's gonna turn though. When are they gonna come at me?
Yep.
That's when you're like, God, I wish I would have picked up that shotgun about 2 bays back.
Yep.
And that's the one thing I like about Halo, aside from the Flood, and just in general, is the diversity of the terrain. Like, you get to be a little bit of everywhere. There are forests, there are jungles, there are deserts, spaceships, cities, like you name it, you fought there.
Well, the nice thing about that also in the games was there were no loading screens initially. Your loading screen was you driving through the area that connected to the different zones. The length of time it took you to drive through there was your load time.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
The cool thing is the little details they put in. So, for instance, when you're going through some areas that were a bit like there's graffiti, there's some soldier drew a upside down smiley face or penis like soldiers do. Like they went to that level.
Some
Like,
sort of futuristic phallic symbol, as soldiers will do and have always done.
From Hadrian's Wall
Wow,
to
what a clean
Halo
wall. I want to draw a dick on it.
Yeah, but I mean,
soldier, airmen.
Somebody that helped create this game has to have, if they didn't serve, they knew someone well enough to get the right questions asked, because they nailed a lot of that.
Can you imagine that? It's like they didn't serve, but they had like an uncle that served. They're like, hey, I want to put this in the background. What would soldiers do in the background? He's like, draw dicks on it. Lots of dicks. Big, veiny, triumphant bastards, too.
The only thing Halo's missing is a porta-john.
You're right. There's no space shitter.
No, well, there was one.
I'm pretty sure there is one.
There was a
But does it have the graffiti?
Yeah.
On one of them, I think it was Halo 1.
There might have been
There's a
with
porta-john?
an Ungoy in there. If it's the area I think it is, then there was an Ungoy in there. One of the
It's like a
grunts.
shower. The implication is a shower bay, and there were parts that you couldn't access on the ship that would have been like that appeared to have been like, oh, that's where you go take a
There's no toilet, but there's a shower bay, so they're waffle stopping.
Oh, gross. And in every military unit, you have the phantom shitter who is dropping a log that shouldn't come out of a human being. There in the shower bay.
So what I want to know is, in the future of Halo, like, galaxy, world, post-humanity at that point, are we using toilet paper or 3 seashells?
I'm thinking we're using bidets.
Yeah.
We're watching
Pressure water
Bidets-
shot up in the bum.
Bidets are the ultimate tech. Like it doesn't go any better from there.
Just watch the
Have you
pressure.
used a bidet? Have you ever used one?
No, I
oh
have
my
not.
God, they're majestic.
I have 2 in my house.
Oh my Lord. Having
They
the
kind of look
poop
scary.
sprayed off your bunghole is
It
peak
goes from
humanity.
clean to
That
enema
is
real
peak-
quick.
Oh. Well,
Just
it could
make
go
sure-
to enema real
Just
quick, yeah.
just make sure it's aimed right, because if you have it on the wrong setting and turn it on full force, you get your eyes crossed.
We're scaring the poor impressionable young Isaac.
I did have it go through the cheeks, off the small of my back, rooster tailing myself. I did have that with a improper aiming technique of the bidet. You know what? It still felt nice.
Now all I can think of is Master Chief trying to use a bidet. And like he
Put
just
his
like really
helmet on.
flexes like, shit, Cortana, wrong setting.
You kidding me? It'd have to be a fire hose.
And then it's like, well, how do they use the bathroom in those suits? Can you imagine? I'm picturing like Ralphie in A Christmas Story trying to take all that stuff off to use the bathroom.
I can't.
Get the torque wrench.
What does Iron Man say? It's a filtration system. We're fine. We're fine.
You could drink this water.
But I
Very
love
Iron
how much
Man-ish.
I love how much thought goes into those little details that you wouldn't think about, like, until you see it. I'm like, oh yeah, like the graffiti or the bathroom.
It's like Iron Man 2. It's like, no, there's a filtration system in the suit, so I just. Yeah, you could drink that water.
Kill him.
So gross.
Ugh.
All the proteins taken out. Gross. Smells like coffee. Knowing everybody in this room, it smells like coffee, I'm sure.
When I think of that armor, it makes me like to try to picture what that must smell like. I roomed with a hockey player as a freshman in college, and you've never smelled funk like you have smelled funk from a hockey player's gym bag.
No,
And that's what
JR. No, JR. You haven't smelt funk like a hockey player who hasn't opened their bag in 20 years.
It was 10.
All I'm saying is new species of fungi were created.
There's things living in my gloves that just would baffle scientists.
You know the perfect, and this is just the sergeant and me. I'm thinking the perfect ending for the Halo franchise is when Master Chief is retiring and he's having to turn all of his equipment into CIF.
Like, no, space CIF?
Yes, he's like, you're missing one space pistol. It's like, yeah, man, the Covenant took it back on Reach. I can't help it. Well, you signed for it, sir.
I better hope there's an XO like me. He's like, no, that's durable, expendable. We write that off.
You got to push the rifle back and say that's not clean.
Yeah.
It's going to be at the end of the Halo franchise. It's a long list of weapons at that point, right? It's just like, yeah, I had to ditch it because I ran out of ammo.
I wish that.
Yeah, and then you replaced it with a needler, and I don't see that as well. It's like, dude,
wait, you track a needler? They're not even human.
You're tracking a needler? That's Covenant weaponry. Like, yeah, well, there's an alliance now between us and the Covenant.
And they want it back?
Yeah, right. Like, F you, dude. Like,
the sad thing
somebody
is
with that when it ran out of ammo.
Central issuing, like, supply is imagining, like, yeah, they would probably try to charge me for enemy stuff I took, too. Like, we want that back and that back.
That'll be $15.6 billion for your Spartan armor.
It says here you wrote a report that you ditched a plasma pistol in space. Would you like to expound on that? I'm pretty sure that that's not a reasonable expectation, and you're going to owe us money for that one.
It ran out of ammo. What do you want from me?
He's gonna take off his. He's gonna finally take off his helmet, and they're gonna be like, "Your beard is out of regulations."
Sorry, sir, you can't retire now.
Sir, you can't. You can't retire, even though you're 8 feet tall and you could wreck everybody in this office. Why is
the only line that they missed in that movie that I've heard from soldiers all the time? I heard it from people that served in Vietnam, and I heard it in Iraq. Was when someone would get on you for breaking some minor infraction. It's like, what are you gonna do? Bend my dog tags and send me to war? Because you
cancel Christmas.
Always say that in a war zone. What do you do? Bend my dog tags and send me to Iraq?
I'm already here.
What did my brother say the other day? He said,
"Your non-deployed brother."
No, Spencer.
Yeah, your non-deployed brother.
Well,
he didn't deploy.
He went to Korea, so.
He went to Korea. That's a mobilization. That's not a deployment.
What did he say?
Fuck you.
He said, I hope World War III doesn't start for 3 more years. I don't want to get recalled.
I can recall him up to 50. I don't know what he's worried about.
So that would be
4 more years.
Well, that takes that. If you do your first enlistment, it's 8 years, and if you're an officer, that's where the recall is more wide.
They try to cap it at 50. They try to cap it at 50.
He says he has 3 more years in his contract. Hold off on World War III until.
I need Papa Joe not to start a new war for 4 more years, so I don't get recalled as an officer.
So, what would you think would be the perfect ending, Isaac? You think supply issue would do it, or you got something better?
I don't really know or have the experience to agree or deny what you're talking about, but I think, sure.
Supply.
Okay.
Supply's the issue.
It's always the issue. It's like, I remember when I got out of active duty the first time, they were like, hey, you don't have a pile cap. I'm like, you never issued me a pile cap. They're like, yeah, but you signed for it. And I'm like, I didn't know what a pile cap was. I was a damn E2.
Yeah.
I was a pile cap. And then I come to find out that they never issue anybody a pile cap. And that's how they don't have a stock hold of pile caps. Because you have to go out to CIF. You have to go to the exchange and go buy a pile cap. That runs $26.95. That was the price back then. To a hat that I never worn, that I was never issued, that I didn't have any use for, and I gave it to him. after I spent almost $30 of my own money, and I'm like, what the hell? And it's like, how do you not have a stockpile of this? Because this seems to be the racket. You're getting everybody on the pile cap.
They're getting AFI's kickbacks. That's what's going on.
For $26.95. $26.95.
So that's the one thing that they, like I said, because they got the culture, you could almost picture these scenes working. The other one would be you get them coming home. You could do some of like the homecomings and some of these like random kids, like, how many did you kill in the war? Because there's always that one person that asks those, like the one little kid. So you can't be but so mad at him.
Confirmed kills you got. I'm like 27. Next.
Well, I was a cook.
So
yeah,
battalion, how many are in a battalion? Because I at least gave.
Well, if you played Master Chief, you rode the bomb in, so you got lots of. I mean, you got a whole starship.
Oh,
yeah. He haloed into a planet on one of them. He ejected himself out of a spaceship. It was just like, yeah, I'm going to make this work.
And that was the one thing that I don't know. It's the beginning of Halo 3 where he basically did his own drop using stasis lock to keep himself safe. I know why they did it, because of the whole stasis lock thing in multiplayer. Whenever you go down, you lock out for a little bit and then you can come back up. But yeah, that was a little odd. I understand it though, and I know that they used it as a way of introing into your calibration for your controller.
Cool cutscene though.
It was.
Great
cutscene. Very cool cutscene.
I think the crater should have been bigger.
Yeah,
absolutely. Going past terminal velocity, you know, from orbit. He's
weighing like what, 600 pounds, 8 feet tall.
And
yeah,
Sergeant Johnson again gives him with like the best description of it. Man, he flew pretty good for a brick.
There should be an entire channel just
nothing but cutscenes from the sergeant.
From cutscenes from Sergeant Johnson.
Oh, because I'm sure it exists.
He was the perfect everyman. You know, he's in this like fantastical situation and just like making comment on it. He's like, yeah, he came in pretty good for a brick on fire. You know?
If the timing had worked, I would have loved to seen like an Arlie Emery type character going back and forth with the gunnery sergeant. That would have been hilarious. One-liners off the cuff, back and forth.
I think they had him in like either the second or the third game. I'm gonna have to go backtrack that. As a voice actor, it wasn't classic.
I distinctly remember that now that you're saying it. But I
think
mean,
it was one of the setups, you know, like where you like get accustomed to the game. It was like in the beginning.
Yeah.
And he was like the drill instructor. He was the drill instructor. He's like, oh, okay, it looks like you got targeting coordination's good to go, and you know, that's not the voice. I can't do his voice. I can do many voices. That one eludes me.
Okay, well, so we've got we're at an hour and 40 minutes. So before we go, though,
yeah, but it's Halo. We can go 3 hours talking about this.
I would not complain. So JT, do you have a favorite alien of the alien races in Halo?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Probably one of the Forerunners. I like the librarian's role mostly.
Okay.
Because what she did for humanity. There's rumors that she's actually the reason why we even have the Spartan program.
Okay.
So that one's pretty cool. Then there's all the different classes. I mean, they were a very hierarchical or class-based society. So you had like their warriors, they had their what they called their life servants or whatever, which were basically their medics. So it was a very interesting culture.
What about you, Isaac? You got a favorite of the alien species?
The little bowl librarian thing in might have been also been in Halo 2, but I don't know it was in
the engineers.
The engineer. I know he had ulterior motives, but I really like that guy. This fine little droid that you follow around and, you know, leads you through danger. But still, there were some things about it that I liked. As for the Covenant, those little tiny guys, little tiny grunts, some of them were really hard to kill, and I'm almost certain they cussed at you. But they were a lot of fun to blow up with grenades. Here we go.
Brutes definitely cussed at you.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Shady?
I mean, for me, it's still the Song Healy. Like they were kind of the OG honorable piece of the Covenant, right? And they had they built their backstory out really well. They had a lot of really cool. I mean, don't get me wrong, they built everybody out really well. The grunts are hilarious. I love all their lines, right? You know, and the birthday party grunt skull, which kind of can't, really made it fun to shoot him in the head. But as far as the actual race that I like, the Song Healy were, no matter which side they fell on, they were always kind of like that. They were as chill as the Arbiter, and they always kind of knew exactly how they needed to act, and that was probably really cool for me.
Okay. I like they gave some very samurai vibes to them.
Oh yeah.
So, What about you, Stabby? You have a favorite of the alien races?
I think because we all know that Stabby loves to do research. I think I like the jackals the most.
The Kigyar, yeah, I love them.
They remind me of Egyptian gods.
Okay.
In all the crazy research, that's kind of what it brought to mind, and I was like, that's pretty freaking rad. So I think I'd have to go with the jackals.
Me too. And they were also the marksmen. They were always the one with the energy shields and the rifles.
The snipers.
So
yeah,
they were basically your loot drop if you like to play the long game for sniping. The jackals were your Christmas present. Oh, one of them. Let me take it. Yeah. And you could overcharge your pistol if you had one of the plasma pistols. You could hold it and overcharge it to take their shield out, which I thought was kind of cool little trick of the game. And the first time you discover that without someone telling you, and you realize, holy crap! It's like you hear the sound of
I can do
bells
this
and
the whole
carols.
time.
All right, Nick.
Who needs a new combo? I just need this.
Exactly.
Exactly.
What's your favorite?
I like the elites. I was a big fan of the Arbiter. Loved playing him. Loved interacting with him in Halo 2. And it was voiced by Keith David. Huge fan of his work. So it was a perfect storm for me. And I liked them because, like you said, they were the samurais of the Covenant. They were very honorable. And I dug that. I liked that type of soldier. I like that type of species. That, and they were hard as shit, especially when they go invisible with the laser sword.
Oh yeah.
Oh god,
Yeah.
I loved them and I hated them at the same time because they were great when they were on your side, but they were frustrating as hell when you were fighting against them. So game recognizes game, and so yeah, they're definitely my favorite and probably some of the best interactions. Noble second. The Flood. It scared the shit out of me. Because the music would change, and next thing you know, I'm fighting a armada of alien things that I can't kill.
And that's the one thing that made the Flood so much scarier when you play against them is you were constantly running out of rounds. You're like, holy crap, where's the next weapon? Because I'm about dry.
You were constantly looking for extra weapons or ammo, and
that was a normal.
That was on normal. That's not even legendary.
Yep.
Just playing the basic B level game. Like a normal person would oh, okay, I guess I'll just play on normal, and then I'm just getting throttled by these things. And then I kill one and it explodes into 1,000 other things, and I'm like, son of a gun. Holy crap. And she's witnessed, because I replay these games once a year, and it takes about 4 weeks. It takes about a month out of my life. Not that I can complain, because if I'm going to die, I'm going to die fighting these things. So
my
then you shoot him, and the arm will fall off, and then you get hit by the other arm because it didn't die.
Yeah.
Right. It's such a frustrating enemy, and that's awesome too. Because that's the reason we play games. We like the challenge in the gameplay. So when you shoot an arm off of someone from the flood, and they're like, and you shoot off, I'm like, all right, cool, I don't have to worry about things. But I didn't kill it, so it's still flopping on the ground, kicking my ass. And then
just when you think it's dead, it explodes, like you said, and it just sprays your entire.
And that's the time where I don't have the shotgun anymore. It's like I gave it up like about 4 levels ago because I wanted the plasma sniper rifle. So there's a lot of consequence in your gameplay choosing of weaponry in this game, and I think that's what's so great about it, is because you have to make the right choice. And like on the replay, you make the right choice. The first time going through, you're like, yeah, I wish I would have had the shotgun. That would have helped me out right now.
Shotgun, damn it! Shotgun,
damn it! Remington 870 made this thing for a reason, even in space. Gosh darn it!
The trench sweeper for the win. It's timeless for a reason. So
That's
my
right,
second, my honorable second place favorite alien species is the hunters. It's like Macala. I don't know. They just threw some consonants together for that alien name. MGALEKKO or GO, excuse me, LO, Macakalalo. I got nothing.
The Jason Momoas, yeah.
The hunters, the giant brutes of it's just like a colony of worms that work together to form this giant space yeti thing that will kick your ass. Which is why they'll have the rocket launcher type deal that you can get in there. It's designed to take out those hunters.
If we're talking about second place, I'm with Isaac though. The engineers. I mean, granted, Spark had some decent lines too. It's like, he had the you tried to blow up my installation. You did blow up my installation.
Blew up the first Halo ring.
Yep.
Yeah.
But they always give him just a little bit of extra, and you're like, I know you're malicious. I know you're going to turn on me because you have a very particular job to do, but damn it, I love talking to you.
So what demon?
What did you say in the side chat? What was it you were saying the flood looked like to you, Isaac?
Sometimes the specific ones look like giant popcorn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Little tiny ones.
Yeah.
Like in Halo, popcorn, it's you.
Yeah. I like that.
Love it.
Yeah, that's a good one too. There's definitely more to talk about. I think we could dive into this book specifically, or maybe do some movie reviews of the various movies, and we'll force Katie and Isaac to watch them. I think we'll have to do a review of Ford Unto Dawn. It's an excuse to watch it for the 12th billionth time.
I don't really have an excuse to watch that, but I appreciate the anchor line to watch it again because I love that movie so much.
It's a good one.
Yeah. So with that being said, JT, so what are you working on right now writing wise? And then can you tell listeners and viewers how they can find you?
Sure. So I've actually got a fantasy story that I'm working on for the Bane contest that's coming up. It's already on right now, but the submission cycle ends, I think, at the end of April.
Okay.
So I've got that. I've got one story out to an anthology that might sound familiar to our discussion topic tonight. I've got a few other stories in the works, and I'm working on a novel that needs a lot of work.
And it will be in the show notes, but what's the one main way people could find you on the internet?
The main way is probably my website, which is just my name. So www.jtarail.com. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter. Don't really check social media much, but you can reach me there. Okay.
And if you were going to tell, I'm just going to put you on the spot. We're going to brainstorm real quick. If you could write a Halo story, what setting would you use, and what kind of story do you think you'd tell?
That's a good question. Probably Reach, and I know it's already been somewhat covered, but I'd have to pick one of the time periods in there, probably like leading up to the invasion.
Okay.
Because I think that might be something interesting to try to develop.
Okay.
That
Isaac,
or
go
the Spartan program, where they talked about some of the failures. I'd really want to delve into what life looked like for those people afterwards, because they did mention that they try to take care of them somehow for those that survived.
Some of them work for Oni.
Some of them do work for Oni, those that are mostly functional, but there are some that weren't quite as functional. I wanted to kind of see what that looked like.
I'm picturing that one hunchback clone trooper that everyone loved, like when it comes to the ones that failed out of the Spartan program.
Right.
Maybe she'll become the mascot. Here, boy, go fetch my plasma grenade.
He's got his own little helmet.
Isaac, so how can they find you online, and what are you working on right now?
I'm currently on Facebook. That's mainly where I hang out.
Okay.
I rarely use Twitter, though I do keep up, and also Instagram. But I'm mainly on Twitter. I'm mainly on Facebook.
Okay.
I'm currently working on running through a draft for a young adult novel set in mid-'80s.
Okay. It was a good time. I was there. Okay. And if you could tell a Halo story, where would you set it? What kind of story you think you'd tell?
Probably in the first Halo, late, probably against the Flood.
Okay. All right. And what about you, Dave? Where are you online, and what are you writing right now that you can tell us? Because I know you've got some stuff it's hush hush for the moment.
Yeah. So you can find me at davidshanoy.com, and from there you can jump to my Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever else. I'm on a lot of the socials. I even have a Twitch page, but you won't see much there yet. I plan on dropping some content maybe later this year. But the things that I'm working on right now, I will have an urban fantasy short story coming out mid-April with the release of the Fantasy anthologies under New Myth Press, one of the imprints of Chris Kennedy Publishing. And
did you get into the Paladin story with New Mythology Press?
Paladins of Valor, and you'll see it if you're a fan of some of the New Myth series, you'll see that this urban fantasy setting, and I co-wrote it. My co-writer for that, H.Y. Gregor, she'll be releasing a series in that particular universe, the Milesian Accords. So you can check that out, and that should be coming out probably late summer or later than that. My involvement in that right now is very sparse, but I'm hoping to kind of pick that up. So we'll see what comes out from that for me. I've got a novel, a debit companion novel. Right now we're trying to get it out late spring. We're calling it Companion to Ghosts. And that is Casey Azell and myself. And hopefully that will come out late spring, if not midsummer. And then from there, we'll see. I've got a bunch of other projects that I have plans for, and hopefully I probably won't have anything else other than maybe short stories coming out later this year. But next year, hopefully, we'll start to pick up the pace a little more.
Okay. Rumor has it you're a door gunner in the Space Force, but the Challenger is not gonna defend itself. So, well, we commend your service, sir.
Yeah, we'll keep running with that rumor. I do space gunnery.
Yeah, why not? All right, and if you were gonna write a Halo story, what would you write? Where would you set it?
Gotta have an AC-130 in it. I'm just saying.
There you go. No. So what I would want to do a day in the life of a grunt battling the humans. Right.
I love it.
Give them their own Sergeant Johnson driving them forward, who's a Song Healy.
Shock knock, chong.
Yeah. Let them run wild, and then it's like you start following a grunt, and then it dies because Master Chief came came through it. So you start following another grunt, and then he survives a little longer, but then dies from like getting run over by a warthog. Yeah, that would probably be where I'd go.
Quit making up animals, Griff.
Sammy.
What animal has tusks? A walrus. What did I just tell you about making up animals?
What did I tell you about making up animals?
So Stabby, what kind of story would you tell if you were writing in the Halo worlds?
You're muted.
Zombies and aliens. Like, come on. I am the horror queen of our little community here.
So you write a flood story.
So I would just make it as scary as freaking possible. Maybe bring in the triangle head guy from Silent Hill.
Mixed franchise.
I can do whatever I want if I'm writing it.
Okay.
I want to make it scary. I want your heart
the whole time.
I want your heart to be beating out of your chest and you sitting on the edge of the chair like, oh my God, what are we going to find? What's about to show up? I want it to be pitch black until your flashlight hits it and then you're just like out of your skin.
It's all fun and games, Stabby, till they forward you their therapy bill.
I don't check that email anyway.
Which would explain why my benefits keep getting denied for therapy.
All right, Nick. So we've talked about recently in the Apogee episode what you're working on. So what I need from you is if you're going to write a Halo story, where would you set it, and what kind of story you think you're going to tell?
It's funny because Stabby already kind of went into that. I would write a story about the flood.
Okay.
Because I find them scary and I like horror and I like the whole, you always find them in the deep dark and your flashlights on. And next thing you know, you're running into a horde of these damn things. That'd be cool. I'd also like to, if I may, do a commando story with the elite. Maybe with the Arbiter before you use the Arbiter. I think that'd be a cool story to write. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely do that.
So I think it could be fun to tell a story from the insurrectionists POV, like pre-invasion, because there was a lot of activity going on Reach before the invasion. It's covered in Forward Unto Dawn because they get on the main character Lasky about whose character comes back later in the it's a callback because he comes back as a ship commander. And they added so much cool lore to him that I think it's kind of cool. But I'd like to see like something from the.
Was that in a book, or was it in the game that he came?
Forward Unto Dawn is the main characters. That is the later is the captain in one of the ships that you're on.
Wow!
And the scene of him
back in the game.
He's in the game,
like
but
2 or 3.
Yeah, this is him as a cadet.
Right?
But yeah,
3.
That could be fun.
Forward Unto Dawn came out way later.
Yeah, that could be fun. I mean, it fits earlier timeline wise, not necessarily in when it was released. So I think some of the interaction stuff could be fun because that was the first operations, and you see some of that in the books of the Spartan program was going against the insurrectionist leaders. They were cutting the head off the snake. And so that could be fun. Or I just love me some ODST. I haven't written a franchise either mine or someone else's where I didn't add an ODST type character because they're so badass. So I definitely write an ODST story. And I'm a human supremacist, so screw those alien scum. So I'm not writing any of those alien POVs. They've all got to die. What I do want to know,
I'm getting that tattooed right here. Human supremacist.
So the one thing I do think would be interesting because I'm from the South. Nick, you're from Texas. It's almost like the South. I want to know what these aliens taste like if we cook them up and make steaks.
Chicken.
I don't know.
Chicken or iguana, which is like chicken.
I'm from Vegas. I'm telling you, chicken.
Okay, well, I'm
mean,
just saying
everything tastes like chicken, or does chicken taste like everything?
It's a good question. We're deep in moral philosophy.
I mean, they posed that question in the Matrix. They didn't know what chicken was supposed to taste like. That's why everything tastes like chicken.
Okay. All right. With
Gator tastes like chicken, but with like a fishy, gamey type taste.
It's more chewy.
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
definitely chewy.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can bicker in the after show, but for now, I have to remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books. And if you do it right, we will tempt the aliens to invade so we can kill them, take their loot, and eat their corpses, because that's how we do it, people. Rock on. And you can find us, since we said where we can find all of our intrepid guests, you can find us on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChutes, the Rumbles, the YouTubes, the Twitters. We have our email, blastersandbladepodcast@gmail.com, for professional purposes only. We have a hate mail going to this address that Stabby apparently doesn't check. We have a Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. The page is new, so check the link. If you've already followed, you got to follow the new one. We had some technical issues, and I'm just bad at tech, so don't hate me. It's not my fault. I was born this way. And last but not least, we have Madam Stabby Stab on Instagram, Twitter, and email. If you want to send the hate mail, maybe she'll even open it. I don't know. Life's a mystery. Click the link and find out. And with that being said, we also have our website, anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades, where for as little as 99 cents a month, you can help keep the lights on. These episodes aren't free to produce, and we appreciate your patronage. And if you want to support the show more directly, it's buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section. It's for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink until they pee coffee, and no, I got nothing. I'll work on a better line next time, I promise. Because Nick might even still drink it. He's into weird stuff. We don't judge, though. And you can support the show more directly by going to the link in the show notes for our affiliate, Coffee Brand Coffee, where they have all the teas, hot chocolate, and coffee worth drinking. I am still digging there. That I bought marshmallow hot chocolate. I bought it at Christmas. I haven't exhausted it yet. It's delicious. It's caffeinated. It's goodness. Not as good as coffee, but it's a good second. I will take it over tea any day. And with that being said, thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And with that being said, we were out. Thank you, JT and Isaac and David, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
In all fairness, I do check that email, but the freaking t-shirt merch guy that's supposed to be making the Stabby merch, he just is a crybaby. It's not my fault, so I just stopped.
I had a fucking stroke. Get off my ass.
Not you, the t-shirt guy.
Hold on. I got to do it. Show your shirt, Nick.
Okay,
All right.
We decided that's a.
I'll never be told that I don't have a sense of humor. I
Yeah,
did have a major life-threatening issue. I had a stroke.